Like most of the segregated South, during the Civil Rights era, African Americans faced racial discrimination in Biloxi, Mississippi, which included segregated beaches. These beaches became the battleground for the first civil rights protest in Mississippi when Dr. Gilbert Mason took the responsibility to organize protests that became known as the Biloxi Beach Wade-Ins. He made Biloxi school system to open schools to all races in the 1968 federal court ruling, opening the beaches to all citizens.
Slavery technically ended in the South on January 1st, 1863, with the Emancipation Proclamation, but African Americans were not really free. In 1896, the Plessy v. Ferguson decision led to the separate but equal, which separated African Americans from their Caucasian counterparts in public facilities. Separate but equal turned into a racial caste system called Jim Crow laws, which did not allow interracial marriage and ordered business owners and public institutions to keep their black and white clientele separated. There were separate water fountains, restaurants, and schools.
Biloxi, Mississippi was no different than the rest of the South in its enforcement of Jim Crow laws. However, Jim Crow justice also gave property owners more rights by law than the actual laws. In Biloxi, residential houses were placed across the street from the Biloxi beach. These houses were handed down from generation to generation by affluent white property owners. These property owners felt that the property and the beach across the street from their property belonged to their families. They felt that they had the right to decide who could access their family beachfront. By law, African Americans were allowed on the beach. However, the people in Biloxi did not follow that law. Officers would not allow African Americans on the beach because the homeowners in front of the beach called it their private property.
Some of the South was changing. 1954, Brown v. Board of Education. 1955, Rosa Parks and the Montgomery bus boycott. 1957, Little Rock 9. Although the civil rights movement was in full force in many different parts of the segregated South, the movement had not yet made its way to the stubborn state of Mississippi. In Biloxi, almost everything was still segregated: schools, shops, restaurants, and even beaches. However, Dr. Gilbert Mason Sr. was about to take the responsibility to make a change.
Dr. Mason was born in Jackson, Mississippi on October 7, 1928. In 1955, he moved with his wife and one-year-old son to Biloxi and established a medical practice. He helped form many coastal organizations in Biloxi and Harrison County, including the Gulf Coast chapter of the NAACP.
Mississippi's first noted civil rights disobedience splash took place on Thursday, May 14, 1959, when 9 black citizens of Biloxi, Mississippi ventured onto a forbidden spot on a segregated beach in open and conscious defiance of Mississippi's Jim Crow practices. The Biloxi police stopped the peaceful protest and brought in all 9 citizens, charged with trespassing onto what the police called private property. This foiled protest didn't stop Mason from planning future demonstrations, and with the help of family and friends from the local church, he was able to draw attention to the segregation of the beaches.
On April 24, 1960, the Wade-In, later remembered as Bloody Sunday, was the most attended and the most violent Wade-In to date. A terrible race riot occurred when 40 to 50 African Americans attempted to swim off the Mississippi Gulf Coast beaches in Biloxi and Gulfport. It was scheduled to start at 1 p.m. right after church. Dr. Gilbert Mason was riding to the meeting point when he was greeted by chaos as he witnessed angry whites attacking the civil rights activists with sticks, chains, carjacks, clubs, pool cues, and a wire cable fashioned into an 18-inch long whip. Ethel Rainey Clay was a 17-year-old high school student when she helped bring change to Biloxi in 1960.
I distinctly remember some of the men who had baseball bats and who had chains that chased us off of the beach and we left running were people that I knew from working at the Buena Vista Hotel. You see what I'm saying? And I recognized some of them as in the process of, of getting off the beach and trying to help each other because they had all surrounded us and had come upon us with these chains and bats and what have you. And we just being young teenagers and all, we were trying to help each other to flee,
The assault began with what the New York Times called the worst race riot in Mississippi history. As the commotion continued, the Biloxi officers stood by watching the pandemonium unfold. A deputy came up to Mason and told him he'd have to go to jail, but Mason simply said he would go to jail after he was finished sewing up the people who were injured on the beach. The deputy took his promise and left him to help his brave yet injured friends. After he was finished, he dutifully reported to jail and was immediately bailed out by his family and friends from his church.
The violence continued into the night, with 2 white men and 8 black men suffering gunshot wounds. On April 25, 1960, 2 firebombs were thrown into the office of Dr. Gilbert Mason in response to his leadership of the Wade-Ins the day before that resulted in a bloody riot. After one firebomb burned itself out, another one exploded, but neighbors quickly put out the flame. After the riots that occurred as a result of the Wade-Ins in April 1960, the black community borrowed a page from the bus boycott in Alabama by testing a different tactic, boycotting several white-owned businesses instead of planning future Wade-Ins. Specifically, the group targeted the Board and Milk Company, a large drugstore on Howard Avenue, and a general food and variety store on the corner of Nixon and Division Streets. The Justice Department filed suit in the United States District Court to force equal access of the 26-mile beach of the Mississippi Gulf Coast for all races.
I thought we had every right and privilege as the next person to go there, for the simple reason we were paying the same amount of taxes as others were paying. You know, we weren't exempt from paying seawall taxes or city taxes or anything else. So yes, I thought we had a right to be there.
During the same time, Dr. Mason and wife Natalie petitioned at the Biloxi School Board on behalf of their son Gilbert Jr. They wanted the Biloxi schools to be integrated because African American children did not have the choice to attend white public schools. White public schools received more state funds, offered better education, and more classes such as art, music, and physical education.
Violence in their peaceful protests didn't stop them from planning another Wade-In. Little did they know this would be the final Wade-In before everything changed. June 18, 1963 was the original date for the last Wade-In. On June 12, 1963, Medgar Evers was assassinated in his driveway in Jackson, Mississippi. Because of Evers' death, the Wade-In was rescheduled to be June 24, 1963. The beachgoers placed a double row of black flags on the beach in his honor. Dr. Gilbert Mason and Dr. Felix Dunn of Gulfport led the protesters to the beach. 71 people went into the water. From the shore, 2,000 angry whites watched. The event was organized with the cooperation of the new mayor, Danny Geis, whom newly registered African American voters helped put into office, and he demanded a peaceful demonstration, which the officers duly supervised. Mason recalled this event in his book, Beaches, Blood, and Ballots. We swam, played ball, and milled around for 40 minutes or so. But homeowners complained about the protesters, so they were arrested for trespassing and later convicted. The arrest allowed them to get the issue into court.
Because the Biloxi Wade-Ins, positive changes started happening. On August 31, 1964, Biloxi's public schools were integrated through freedom of choice desegregation. It was the first act of desegregation in Mississippi. No school-based incidents occurred in Biloxi as a result of the desegregation of education. On August 16, 1968, Judge J.P. Coleman ruled that the Mississippi Gulf Coast beaches were public property, available for the use by all citizens. This court victory opened Harrison County's Biloxi Beach to all African Americans. Biloxi's civil rights splash had trickling effects throughout the nation. Wade-Ins from Illinois to Florida Keys gained equal beach access for all Americans.
Since the Wade-Ins, Biloxi has become a growing tourist destination for all people. Its beaches have remained public property thanks to the efforts of Dr. Gilbert Mason. Today, 18% of people living on the Mississippi Gulf Coast work in the tourism industry. Numerous hotels, casinos, and restaurants are now open to all people regardless of their skin color.
Although once a segregated battleground, the Biloxi Beach is now big business, as well as serving as a beacon of light to subsequent reforms, such as Freedom Summer, Civil Rights Act of 1964, and Voting Rights Act of 1965. Thanks to Dr. Gilbert Mason for taking the responsibility to secure the rights of all races to enjoy the beach.
A lot of people just don't know about it. Just think it's something that just happened, but it didn't just happen. You know, it was some tears and blood was shed.